Either karate do yes or karate do no. You karate maybe like grape. Understand? Welcome to my dojo. This is Kung Fu Pizza Party, and I'm your host, Brandon Knight. And apparently I cannot pick an intro quote that won't make my guest today laugh. This is Kung Fu Pizza Party. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we begin our journey to Karate Kid Legends with our review of the 1984 classic that started it all. Yes, 1984. You heard me correctly, folks. That original movie is 41 years old now, and we're still talking about The Karate Kid, starring Ralph Macchio. And with me here again to review another movie that ended and she went, meh, Claire, my wife, Claire. Claire, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
So, here on Kung Fu Pizza Party, listeners, I seek to deliver high-flying action in 30 minutes or less and serve up some wisdom one slice at a time. But before we get into the review, I want to talk a minute about that delivering of high-flying action in 30 minutes or less part. Because, as many of you pizza fans out there know, that is a reference to the old Domino's promotion of if you didn't get your pizza in 30 minutes or less, it was free. And I say that because we have a pizza-related gimmick here on the show, and to help communicate the fact that the episodes, I try to keep around the 30 minutes mark. But I realized one of the reasons why Domino's promotion worked is because there were stakes involved. And so I have decided, and I posted this on social media, that moving forward, I am putting stakes down for these episodes. Every time an episode is over the 30-minute mark, I will be taking on a challenge to repay my debt and restore my honor. I will be the podcast host with the most honor. Now, already, there have been 4 episodes that have gone over that 30-minute mark. Shout out to you, Joshua Knoll, for contributing to one of those. It's about to be 5. It really is about to be 5. You were responsible for 2 of those. So I am solely responsible for 1. But it's gone over 4 times. This is what I have promised. And thanks to a few polls on social media, it has been determined that my first 4 challenges will be a live stream hangout on YouTube. I have to learn a new trick kick, which will actually be helpful for my job. I have to put aside a day for meditation and spiritual practices. All 3 of those are going to be videos on the My Seminary Life YouTube channel. Please subscribe over there, and there's a link for it in the description of this episode. And the 4th thing that I have to do, which will probably be the first thing that I do, is that there will be a double episode drop. So in the next week or 2, on a Friday, there will be 2 episodes instead of 1. So let's get on with this now before we make it 5. So Claire, this was the first time you had saw The Karate Kid. You knew a lot of it already because a lot of this movie is in the pop culture zeitgeist. In the end, what did you think? Did this live up to the hype? Was this what you expected it to be? What did you think at the end?
I think for the most part, it ended up being about what I thought it would be. It was a 80s kind of coming of age-ish movie, pretty simple, straightforward. I will say I feel like the ending was a little anticlimactic. Like, I feel like the pacing of it was a little odd. It went way too quick. Like, I was like, oh, we're at the tournament. Oh, okay, we're at the final round. Oh, it's over. Okay, we're done. Okay, odd.
Let's talk about both of those things. We'll start with the fact that this movie truly is an 80s teen flick, make it karate. As this original trilogy goes on, which it's been a while since I've watched 2 and 3, that will change here quickly. If, from what I remember, the next 2 are a little bit more martial art, this one is definitely coming of age teen movie. Question for you is, what is your favorite 80s teen coming of age film? If you need a moment to think, you got options like The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mine, if for somebody my age, is probably a deep cut. I do really like Better Off Dead with John Cusack. That's
that one when we watched it together.
Go that way really, really fast. And when you come to a tree, turn. Like, it's so funny. It's so quotable. I figured you were going to say Ferris Bueller's Day Off because I know you do really like that one.
I like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I do like Breakfast Club. I feel like there's another one that I really, really like that I am missing, and I'm trying to quickly Google 1980s movies, but it's not coming to me, which is okay.
You haven't seen, which one is it? You haven't seen...
Is Labyrinth an 80s coming of age movie?
I guess it is a little bit of coming of age. Look, I'm one of those people with Labyrinth who it is a fantasy film because at some point in recent history, we've started putting it in with the horror movies during Halloween. It is not even remotely a scary movie. You can't even convince me that that's a gateway horror film. Like, that is... I could maybe give you coming of age a little bit there, but...
Back to the Future?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll count Back to the Future. That's like a family favorite in your household.
Yes, my mom loved those movies.
Yeah, we'll count Back to the Future. Yeah. Okay. So, by way of 80s movies, this is an 80s movie through and through. Ralph Macchio even says... It's the 80s at one point, and you were dumbfounded by that line.
I just don't, I know what it means when nowadays we were like, it was the 80s, we didn't know any better. But, what does that mean in context of it still being the 80s?
I think it means that...
What did people in the 80s think the 80s were?
a time of being able to do whatever you want, I think.
They're still. That's. Yeah.
I don't think it's changed.
It just felt very meta.
Accidentally, it's accidentally meta.
It was very weird. I was like, oh, haha, and then I was like, wait a second, this movie was actually made in the 80s. It doesn't just take place in the 80s.
Yep. By way of 80s movies, it's got all the hallmarks of a good 80s film. Listeners, we're not going to hit the plot of this movie beat for beat because chances are if you're listening to this show, you've probably seen The Karate Kid. There are exceptions, obviously. Claire was one of them.
I don't listen to the show, though.
True, because you listen to me record the show. But... if you are one of those people out there who still haven't yet seen it, the good news is it's on Netflix. The bad news is it's behind a paywall on Netflix. If you have the ad-supported version of Netflix, you cannot watch any of the Karate Kid movies. And I do mean any. That does include the Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith Karate Kid movie. They are all behind a paywall. You have to upgrade. So either you have to get creative like I did, or as one of my fellow podcasters who will remain nameless would say, you're going to have to put your pirate hat on and come up with a very creative way to watch the movie. But, so we're not going to hit this movie's plot beat for beat. Like I said in last week's episode, when I reviewed Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, that movie and Drunken Master, both starring Jackie Chan, both directed by Yuan Wu Ping, sets the martial art movie. It's not really a trope as much as it is like story arc or blueprint of loser gets beaten up by a bunch of bullies only to be saved by a seemingly like normal older person who turns out to be a martial art master. Loser becomes martial art master's disciple and in time not only learns martial arts but also defeats the bullies and becomes a better person. that is the high-level plot of The Karate Kid. You and I picked up on a little bit of coding of another popular character duo, but we'll talk about that. You mentioned the ending. The pacing is something. And actually, when you said that, I actually paused the movie. I don't know why. It was the credits. Could have just let the credits roll. But I paused the movie, and I was like, okay, talk to me more about that. Because in the 80s, there was a bit of there was something that people wanted for the ending that didn't happen. And when I told you about it, you were like, no, I don't want that at all. So tell us a little bit about, like, you said the pacing wasn't your favorite. How, as a popular YouTube channel would say, how should it have ended?
I mean, I think it just felt like very abrupt. Like I was expecting there to be a bit of like a week later and like everything's working out well for Ralphie, Mr. Danielson. Like he's got his girl, he's got some friends, everything's good, the bullies aren't, like a bit of like an epilogue type of thing. But it was just like he beats him, they give him the trophy, they close up on Mr. Miyagi's face, and then it's done. And it was like, oh, that's it? Like,
it is a fast ending. It is like boom, boom, boom. And the movie is, I think it's like just shy of 2 hours. And so doing some kind of like, or actually no, I think it's like just over 2 hours long. And so doing something like you're describing of like an epilogue, they're at the beach, everything's good. And then Mr. Miyagi comes up to Daniel and says, okay, it's time to start training for the next tournament. Like, what does that take? 2 minutes? That's like a 2-3 minute ending. Like, is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yes. That's what I was expecting. Like, it's fine that it wasn't there. I was just a little bit like, oh, we're done.
Now, many fans initially were upset that the movie does not end with a showdown between Mr. Miyagi and Cobra Kai's master. How do you respond to that?
That would not have even come to my mind, because the thing is like Mr. Miyagi's thing is not like having showdowns. Like karate is more than just fighting to him. So I feel like that would like cheapen his message of what karate really is if it ended with him having a grudge match in the parking lot with the...
Don't spoil the setup to the sequel now that... I told you, and I'm going to step on someone's toes by saying this. Karate Kid's history and franchise is a lot of fan service, and that is how Karate Kid 2 opens, with a showdown in the parking lot. It's that good old 80s trope of the second movie starts immediately after the first one. It's how all of the Rocky movies are. And there's a showdown between the two in the parking lot. Here's my pitch to you. Hear me out on this. Because although I also wasn't like, the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't necessarily like, oh, I want to see those two guys throw down. Here's my thing. No follow-up with that guy is the thing. I would argue, as much of a dick as Johnny is, the bad guy is the Cobra Kai master. He is the bad guy of the film. And so the movie ends with the good guys winning, technically, but it does feel a little like shallow, like there should be something. So let me give you my pitch. I think it should have ended with, instead of Johnny walking over to Ralph with the trophy and going, "Here you go, Daniel, you're not so bad of a guy," or whatever he says right there at the end. I would have rathered him walk over to the Cobra Kai master, pull the patch off his jacket, and kind of do one of those, like, hit him in the chest with it and walk away. Because when you see this a little bit there during the tournament scene, when the master tells the one kid to like take Johnny out of commission, he actually feels bad about it. And then when he delivers the famous sweep the leg line, Johnny does have this look on his face of like, what? Like, there seems to be with those two students, like, the facade is finally starting to break, and they're realizing they have crossed a line. Not the one annoying kid who's like, yeah, put him in a body bag. That guy was awful. But I think some kind of realization, like a moral victory. I don't want to fight, but a moral victory of these students realizing we are on the wrong side. Our instructor, it's an 80s film that actually has a very positive warning message about toxic masculinity, which is normally not what the 80s is about. And I think I would have liked that. Again, that's like another 30 seconds to the movie. How do you think of that?
They should have had it, instead of just like a kind of a generic epilogue, they should have had it be where a month later, all of the old Cobra Kai guys are in Mr. Miyagi's backyard learning karate from him. That's how it should have ended.
That's not bad. I kind of like that too. That probably screws up Cobra Kai, the show, a lot.
But if they had made that be the ending in the first place, Cobra Kai would have been different or not a thing.
Something like that. So let's talk crane kick. Is the crane kick, now that you've seen it in action, is it truly the most unbeatable move in all of martial art history? None can defend?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it was convenient for the plot because his one leg was useless, and so he had to have the one leg thing. So
here's my thing though. Now everybody likes to get all bent out of shape over the How I Met Your Mother. Was it a legal maneuver or not? Which if you Google, because I did this just to see, if you Google, is the crane kick legal? You will find a ton of arguments online very strongly both ways. And it all comes down to whether or not the rule set, that is never specified, would have allowed for jump kicks to the face, is what it comes down to. My thing is, on the one hand, yes, he has a wounded leg that he can barely stand on, so here's a technique that he can use that mostly doesn't use his bad leg, but when he does the jump, all of his weight is coming down on the bad leg.
Well, yeah, but by then the match is over, so it don't really matter what happens to his leg then. He just
I think
the kick, and then if his leg snaps in half, well, then that sucks.
That would have been interesting. It's like How to Train Your Dragon when he loses his foot. Like Daniel just actually loses his whole leg.
It just falls off.
It's like Monty Python Holy Grail.
It's only a flesh wound.
The actual cool move in that final fight, in the whole tournament scene, is when Daniel does the drop toe hold onto Johnny, and Johnny lands face first, and then Daniel rolls through and does a back elbow to Johnny's shoulder. That was actually like the moment of, oh, that was really good. That was really cool. Crane kick, not that cool. It's not I
think if they had shot the scene differently, it could have been cooler. But it was just like a wide shot where they start the match and he's already in position. And I don't know, it just felt like they could have built that up a little bit of they could have slowed it down, put some, intense music. I just felt like you could have done something there and you didn't. It just was okay, you did the kick and now it's over. This buildup of oh, nobody can defend this. Oh my gosh, this amazing move. And then it was just oh, he did it. It's over.
Speaking of intense music, isn't You're the Best by Joe Esposito the best song in an 80s movie. It is that sequence in the tournament, the montage with that song. That song always hits. That is, to quote How I Met Your Mother again, it is All Rise.
Sure.
Name me a better song in a movie, not counting soundtracks. In an 80s movie.
I don't know. I don't know the difference between whether or not they were on the soundtrack or not.
So soundtrack's probably not the right word. Score. So like the Star Wars music doesn't count. That is score. The Indiana Jones, Jaws. Well, I think Jaws was the late 70s, but so those wouldn't count. But like, Don't You Forget About Me, or the Ferris Bueller, Bomb Bomb, or look, again, this might be a hot take that's going to step on someone's toes, but like, this song is better than Eye of the Tiger. You have no opinion on this, do you? Fine, we'll move on. Well, I'll ask you something you do have an opinion on. How much did you like Daniel's fighting stance?
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just because, like, I mean, obviously I have very limited martial arts training. I just felt like everybody's fighting stances in this movie, though, was like, are you trying to get punched in the face? Because...
Well, that's the thing, though. In tournament karate, in sport karate at that time, punches to the faces, punching someone in the face was illegal. That is actually established in the movie. You could kick someone in the face. You just may or may not have been able to jump kick somebody in the face. She's rolling her eyes. You didn't care for tournament sparring at all.
No.
Once you understand, you thought it was goofy.
Yeah, like it was like, okay, you got a hit in. Now we're gonna, like, I guess to me, I thought it was gonna be more like, just like sparring, whereas it was like you hit, and then it's done.
The reset
Was weird.
Speaking of weird, it's not weird unless you think about it. The best fight scene, the actual best fight scene in the movie, is Mr. Miyagi beating up the Cobra Kai students after the Halloween dance. Yes, like I said, it's not weird unless you think about it in the context of the 80s. Amazing. In the context of now, he is beating up children. He's beating up minors. That was, though, the best fight scene. Did you care? I know that's like not necessarily like your thing, but
I mean, it didn't really it doesn't really do anything.
I think for me it was it's a fun visual because like the Cobra Kai guys are all dressed as skeletons, and part of the fight you see it through Daniel's lens, who's like passing out essentially because, as you pointed out, the Cobra Kai kids were basically trying to kill him throughout this movie.
Yeah, like, the fact that kid did not have a traumatic brain injury is shocking to me.
Because you were like, oh my God, the scene when they run him off the road and he's just like rolling down the side of the hill.
I was like, he's dead. That's how the movie ends.
No follow-up.
He's in a coma. This is just a dream the whole time.
That would have been... What if that is the finale to... I mean, Cobra Kai has already finished, but like, what if that was the big reveal in Cobra Kai? This has all been a dream, a coma dream.
Ralph Macchio wakes up now, like, as like however old he is as an adult. I'm just like, he wakes up in a hospital.
I'll let her laugh this one off for a bit. So, as many listeners know, Karate Kid has a lot of quotable lines. A lot have entered the pop culture zeitgeist. Wax on, wax off, sweep the leg, strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. And Mr. Miyagi has a lot of good one-liners throughout the whole movie as he kind of warms up to Daniel. The one that I wanted to pick here for the episode, though, was this line that I opened the show of when Miyagi starts teaching Daniel. Daniel says, yeah, maybe, I think I'm ready. And he basically says, it's yes or no. Maybe is not going to work. Like, that is not a way to do karate. And for Mr. Miyagi, that is not a way to do life, because this movie definitely shows how martial arts impacts a person's life of who they are. And I pointed out to you, and you kind of followed up a little bit as it started to sink in, of Yoda says that to Luke of do or do not, there is no try. A much shorter line than what Miyagi says. Is there, do you think, as a diehard Star Wars fan, is there some Luke and Yoda coding going on between Miyagi and Daniel?
I mean, it did feel a little bit like it. Like there was another point where, he's, you know, teaching him the wax on, the wax off, the sand the floor, blah 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 blah, and he's like, and then he gets like really upset, and he's like, I don't understand. What are we doing? We're just like, I'm not doing anything, and like that just like reminded me a little bit of the attitude that Luke Skywalker has, where he's like, I don't understand what I'm doing here. This is ridiculous. We need to get going. I need to learn how to be a Jedi. Come on. And then he like kind of realizes eventually like, oh, okay, like I needed all of this stuff, you know.
I think it also works, this coding that we kind of picked up on, because similar to the Jedi, like learning about the Force and becoming a Jedi isn't just wielding a lightsaber around. You know, that's kind of like the Han Solo to Finn in episode 7 of, that's not how the Force works. Like following the Force, learning how to be a Jedi changes who you are completely, like how a proper training of the martial arts does as well, when it's not just, I'm going to earn belts and learn cool techniques. Because this movie, for it being just like an 80s teen flick coming of age story, actually makes some pretty strong statements on belt ranking, honestly. Because Miyagi does not give a rip about belts. He literally stole someone's belt so Daniel could enter the tournament.
That killed me, man. That was so funny.
Any final thoughts towards the Karate Kid before we wrap this episode up?
I'm trying to think.
Also on the whole belt thing, also apparently becoming a black belt does not matter how many techniques you know, because Daniel knows 8 blocks, how to throw a punch, and 2 kicks.
I know how to do that. I learned that in like the 3 karate classes that I took at my church when I was in high school.
But I guess that's still like, I guess in this movie, the thought is more being a black belt is like your master changing you into a better person, shaping you into like a martial, versus, you know, knowing so many techniques, doing it for so long. He only trained with Miyagi for 2 months. Like, it's more of like an attitude and an it factor.
Kid in a Karate Christmas Miracle got his black belt that quick, so if he could do it, anybody can.
If he could do it, anybody can. Thank you for listening to today's episode, listeners, and thank you, Claire, for being back on the show. Can you please tell the listeners where they can follow you for book talk or Bookstagram content?
Handle is at clairebrooks.readsbooks.
And at some point, Claire will be on the show to review a book that we talked about that in the coming soon edition for this year, that Claire's going to be here to review a book at some point. And we've got another one in the works as well. That should be soon. Follow the show on Instagram at Kung Fu Pizza Party, or on Letterboxd, Kung Fu Pizza PRTY. Literally, the show's name was one character too long. Kung Fu Pizza PRTY on Letterboxd, where you can get a review of the movie before the episode actually comes out. Thank you all for listening. Again, this has been Kung Fu Pizza Party, where we've been delivering high-flying action in 30 minutes or less. and serving up wisdom one slice at a time.